Alright guys, so I don't usually do intros like this, but I thought, why not do it this time, instead of a bunch of artificial lights and coloring, instead just being outside, feeling the weather, feeling the wind, feeling the sun and everything. This episode is very special to me. I believe this is the best interview I've ever conducted. You might see why throughout the interview. This man needs no introduction, although you probably don't know who he is. This man has a very, very powerful story. It was truly remarkable, and I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, comment, and share it. Head on over to Patreon, see what we've got over there. It's a great way to support the podcast and my work. But yeah, this interview is very special, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So thank you all for watching, and enjoy this interview.
Do you know that 60% of consumers avoid brands with unattractive logos, even if they have good reviews? Well, Resurrection Design Co. helps kingdom-minded businesses fix that problem with award-winning brand and web design. And right now, they are offering a free, I repeat, free website design or redesign to the first 2 podcast listeners who sign up for a brand identity package. When signing up for a brand identity package, Resurrection will help you design your brand's visual and verbal identity so that you attract your ideal customers, differentiate yourself from your competitors, and strengthen your credibility in the market. Now, this offer is only valid for the first 2 people who sign up this month, so don't wait to visit resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner to claim it. The link is also in the description. RDC has a 100% client satisfaction and a 5 out of 5 Google rating. So don't wait to snag this deal. Head to resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner or visit the link in the description.
Chris Academia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
So someone once said that jiu-jitsu is like a philosophy. It helps me learn how to face life. So why don't we start off with your story? That's, what I want to get into. So where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like?
I was born in Hawaii, moved to California when I was about a year old, moved back to Hawaii when I was about 12, I would say. Just kind of nothing really special happening growing up. Just had kind of a typical lifestyle other than the fact that we moved a lot. It wasn't until I was about 24 or 25 was the first time that I've ever lived in a house longer than a year. So was constantly moving. But yeah, just growing up, played sports, went to school, grew up in church. Nothing atypical from a lot of people that I know.
So why did you move around a lot? Was it due to maybe some specific job, or was it just kind of the role?
It was just it was just more probably financial reasons. I don't know. I was a kid at the time. We would come home from school and we'd be like, hey, we got to pack up and go. So I don't really know exactly what led to us moving a lot. Maybe it was just to explore. But yeah, we ended up moving a lot. So I had to learn how to adapt, went to a bunch of different schools, constantly learning how to make new friends and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Was that ever super hard maybe because you go to one place, you go to the school, you're that new kid, so you're trying to fit in, and then eventually you find friends. But then once you find those friends, you have to move again.
Yeah, it's difficult when you start to build relationships, but again, moving so much, that's all I knew. So I learned to kind of fit in a lot of places. I had never really made too many deep relationships in my younger childhood times. because we were constantly moving. And it wasn't just like to another part of the town. We were moving to like across town and like, so different schools. Like, so it wasn't, I wasn't like keeping the same teammates from the teams I was playing. I wasn't going to my friends' houses and all that kind of stuff after I'd move away. So it was like every year pretty much I was making a whole new set of like relationships with people.
Do you ever look back on those years and think that you would have liked to stay in one spot, or that maybe all this moving around prepared you for something, in today?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really gone back and thought if I would have preferred to stay in a house. Again, it's all I knew. I definitely feel that with my ability to be able to create relationships fairly quickly with people, it's definitely helped me in my adulthood. Just learning how to relate to different types of people. It's not like I had to really get to know people too intimately, I guess we'll call it. So I can make a lot of like surface level kind of relationships with people fairly easily, and learn how to kind of fit in within different types of personalities, I guess you could say.
Did you ever play, you mentioned the sports teams and everything. Did you ever do any martial arts while you were growing up, or was it strictly just school sports?
No, yeah. I mean, I played baseball, I played a little bit of football, but there was a time where we did kung fu, like karate or something like that. Yeah, I did that for a short period. I can vaguely remember doing a couple competitions and stuff like that, but again, we didn't really stick around too long at any one place to really establish any sort of consistency within our sports or martial arts life.
So what was it like growing up in Hawaii, and compared to maybe living in, obviously Hawaii's part of the US, but at the same time it's out in the middle of water.
Yeah.
Whereas you could drive from Arizona to New Mexico, to Utah, to Georgia, whatever that may be. What was it like growing up there?
It was definitely a fun place to live. Hawaii's a beautiful place. Obviously, it's a huge destination for a lot of people. Again, growing up, I got very comfortable living there, just being able to adapt fairly quickly. It was somewhat of a culture shock for me, being around people my age, because growing up in California, I was kind of growing up in from like up until I was about 12 years old. It was when like the formation of kind of like the gangster rap area, like with NWA and all those kind of guys. So I was starting to kind of fall into that community, like towards the ending of me living in California. So I had the Raiders jackets. I was trying to get the big old gold chains and kind of get into that. And then moving to Hawaii, a completely different culture. Everybody was all about going to the beach and all that kind of stuff, and just very different. But I loved growing up in Hawaii. Once I kind of learned how to adapt and didn't really care about how people made fun of me about the way that I talked, because in Hawaii, like, they speak English, but there's a different way that they kind of speak, as there are different regions in the country. But Hawaii is pretty unique in the way that they speak out there. So once I got kind of over that, it was good. I got to be able to fit in, got to start building a community, just really loved the ocean. I've always loved the water, whether it's pools or the ocean. Lakes kind of freak me out for some reason, but yeah, it was definitely nice.
Yeah. So why exactly do you think that maybe in California, you mentioned how kind of the gangster movement of it was rising up, and obviously we see different variations of that today. But why do you think you and maybe some other people are kind of joining up there, where is, it's some sort of attractiveness or some sort of credibility
going into that?
Yeah.
That kind of, I think it was just like some of the people that I was hanging out with, where we grew up. It was a lot of like, Yeah, I mean, it's just the kind of music that we listen to, like some of the neighborhood kids. We kind of just grew up listening to it and kind of started getting into that. I think that's when, I don't think MTV and stuff was out quite yet. But yeah, it was just kind of what was becoming popular. And, being at like 10, 11, 12 years old, to me, I was thinking I was trying to find who I was trying to become, so I was just trying to find the groups that kind of that I fit with. Like, a common theme throughout my life is like, I kind of, can adapt to different groups. So like, I'm always going to have my sports teams, the sports side of me. Then I'm going to have like the part that's like completely different from that. Later on in my life, got involved in church. So I have the church aspect of me. So like, I could kind of adapt kind of to different personalities, I guess you could say. And kind of put on different hats. And yeah.
Well, so you mentioned that you grew up in church. Was there ever a point where maybe you're adapting to these friends that maybe aren't, horsing around and doing some things they may not should do? Was there ever a point where your parents or like someone you knew was like, hey, you got to stop hanging out with these people? And kind of how did you deal with that? Because as you mentioned that you moved around so much, so it's like you form these relationships or these quick friendships, and it's like, that's all I have.
As far as my parents, they never really, I would say they never really kind of tried to tell me who to hang out with and who not to hang out with. They kind of left it up to me to kind of figure it out. If I was getting involved in things that I shouldn't, they would kind of start to guide me and whatnot. But yeah, they never really told me who not to. And I like to think I was pretty good at not revealing the parts that I didn't think that my parents would be too happy with. There were a few times they got caught doing some things that I probably shouldn't have. But yeah, again, like just learning how to adapt, learning how to kind of compartmentalize, I guess, a lot of my life, learning how to when and who to be at certain times. Just, I think growing up, learning how to kind of be a chameleon and kind of adapt to the settings. So like if I was at church, I had to speak one way and look one way and act a certain way. And then I was with my friends, I never really had those lines kind of crossed. I always try to keep everything very separate.
So let's take it to, you're a teenager, you're in high school or close to graduating high school. What's going on? What are you thinking of in terms of the future and everything?
Yeah, so in high school, again, I played sports. So I was fortunate enough to get recruited to play at a private high school for football. So I kind of got out of the public school system. Now, so let me bring this back a little bit. Now, growing up in Maui, there's not a whole lot of places that you can move far away from where you're living that's going to take you kind of out of your district. So we still moved a lot. But one thing that allowed me to do being in Maui was I kind of got to stay around the same kind of people. So I was able to kind of go to the schools for a few years. It wasn't until high school that I went for more than 2 years into school. So I went from my sophomore to my senior year. So I was able to play football, and baseball and all that kind of stuff. And then, as far as my future, my parents had instilled me always to go to college. But right when I hit like my junior year, I think it was somewhere around there, there were some problems that started going on in the family with my parents and stuff like that, as far as like their relationship. So, the focus kind of got off of pushing me to pursue the college route. So I was kind of left on my own, as far as trying to figure that aspect out. So never really went to college. Ended up going to like a community college out there for a while, but it's really hard to go to college in Hawaii when you love to surf, and every day you go to class, you bring your surfboard, and every time you see waves, you'd be like, hey, I'm an adult, I can do what I want, let's go surfing. So as far as that aspect of my future, the thought was always instilled in me to go to college, just never really did it. Still working on my degree, Oh my goodness, dude. I think this is 30 years since I've graduated high school this year. I'm old. Yeah.
So were you ever very close to your parents or family members and y'all hang out a lot, or was that kind of maybe closer when you were little, but then not as close when you were older and kind of on your own doing things?
Yeah, my mom and I, when I was younger, we had a really strong relationship. Especially when my parents were kind of going through their relational problems. My mom and I always joke around with her is like, my senior year, every week, one day of the week, she would be like, hey, let's go to lunch today. And like, that's all she has to tell me was, let's go eat. Like, and I'm there, So yeah, we were pretty close around that time. My dad and I have always had a very contentious relationship. So yeah, I mean, like I don't doubt that my dad loved me, but it wasn't the relationship that you would see on a TV sitcom for sure,
Yeah. Do you ever, maybe regret some of that or look back on it and think, oh, maybe not, I'm, grateful for that in a way, but that kind of made me who I am today?
Oh yeah, 100%. I believe it made me who I am today. Do I regret it? Yeah, I would have loved to have a better relationship with all of my family members. Especially my dad, because at a very early age, we kind of were butting heads from a very early age. And so even before I had kids, my mindset was always like, if I can take anything out of my relationship with my dad, it was like what not to be, and it's a terrible idea to have, or a terrible thought process to have. But, that's the mindset that I grew up with before I started having kids. And then when I started thinking about having kids, I've somewhat changed, and with age, you kind of get a little bit wiser. I would not necessarily say I'm wise at all, but a little bit. But yeah, like I would have loved to have a better relationship with him. Just kind of getting on with my life and my family and stuff. My mom and we're still close, but just like we don't speak as often. We definitely don't hang out and stuff as often as we used to when I was younger.
Well, why do you think that is? Is it just as time progresses?
Well, I mean, for a while, like I had moved away from Hawaii. She had stayed in Hawaii for a while. And then she currently lives here in Arizona. She lives like less than a mile from me now, but like currently, I'm raising 4 kids. I have a wife. I'm trying to run a business. So just my time, I have very little time to spend kind of in relationships right now. Terrible excuse, but yeah, I have my days are pretty full trying to just keep things together.
Yeah. Did you ever think about maybe at one point being like to your dad, hey, we're going to go out and we're just going to talk things over? Or was it kind of like, no, I don't want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the thought's always there, but every time, I've only seen him maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 15 to 20 years. And it's all 2 of them, I would say, have been at funerals. And another one was, he was just out here recently within the last year, I would say. And he made the decision to move to the Philippines. So I have no idea where he is now. Like I have no way of communicating with him. So, the thought has always been there for some sort of reconciliation. But again, using it as an excuse, like I don't, my days are pretty full. It's not the first thing that's on my mind.
Yeah. And so like when you're raising your kids, has that ever come across your mind where, it's kind of sad in a way where it's like, I'm not really close with my mother and their grandmother, or like, I don't even have a way to communicate with my father or their grandfather anymore?
Yeah. As far as like with my mom, my kids are still pretty close. Like we'll like she'll hang out with my kids and stuff like that, because my kids, again, they have a little more free time. It's not that like I don't have a good relationship with my mom. It's just the fact that like I just don't have time. But my kids have a lot more time. So like we'll go and they'll spend the night over at my mom's house every once in a while, or she'll take them out to lunch or whatever. That's what my mom likes to do. She likes to eat just like I do. But yeah, I mean, as far as like my dad, yeah, it's always been a part of me that kind of regrets not having that relationship, because my kids don't have the opportunity to really know their grandfather. But again, it's not from lack of effort on my side. Like I've tried to make things happen, but I mean, they have great grandparents on my wife's side as well. So it's not, I don't feel like they're missing out on some aspects of relationships, but I don't think that they're lacking too much on a whole lot of anything. Yeah.
So when exactly did you maybe move out and start living on your own, or maybe you're still living in your parents' house, but you're kind of, you sleep there and that's pretty much all you do?
Yeah, I mean, somewhat in high school, there was a time where my dad's mom had she had some health issues. So my dad went back to California to go spend some time with my grandmother, and she ended up passing away. But that was like during my senior year. And so while he was gone, I was kind of taking care of the house. I started paying some of the bills around the house. So, I was doing my high school thing, playing my sports. And then I'd come home, take care of my homework, and then just, it wasn't like a close knit family kind of thing at home. Like we all kind of just were running in and out, kind of doing our own things, and all kind of living within the same household. And so, yeah, but I mean, my dad was gone. And then let's see, I moved out of my parents' house when I was 19, maybe. So maybe a year or two after graduating high school. My younger brother and I had moved out, got our own place. And just, that was the start of my, I'm gonna call it adulthood, because I'm still not growing up yet. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. But so yeah.
So how exactly, because you said y'all weren't like super close knit. So how did y'all go about, funerals where everyone shows up and you're like, I haven't seen this person in 5 years or so?
It's like, as far as like my extended family, it's always nice to see them. Never been super close with any of my extended family. I had some cousins that we were kind of close to, and we still keep in contact every once in a while. But again, for me, it was like our immediate household, I guess, would say it would be the closest that we had as far as like our, like the deepest relationships that I had. And then I had some pretty close friends, but just throughout my life, I've had a lot of people, from the way that I interpret it, kind of like misuse my trust or break my trust. So I'm usually pretty closed. I don't open up to people a whole lot.
So how do you think people should go about dealing with people, not trusting them or misusing their trust?
I mean, I have the ways that I do it. If I had a perfect way to do it, I would probably try to find a way to help others do that, and make it a little bit more readily available. I'm still trying to figure it out for myself. One of the ways that I do that is I have, over the years, created a few relationships that I can really trust people and open up to them. So realistically right now, I have 2 people in my life. It's my wife and my really good friend that lives in California. But I mean, I've had, obviously my dad, he was nobody that I could ever really confide in or open up to. I've had a few pastors in my life that, for one reason or another, had kind of written me off. There were a couple of things that had happened that there was one in particular that kind of just called me up and said he wasn't happy with the way that I was handling my grandfather's death. And that was probably the last conversation I had with him. He was the guy that I had looked to as like a spiritual father, because I didn't really have my dad and I just didn't really have a relationship. So I kind of looked towards him as a mentor. And then that kind of happened. And so how to deal with it? I use humor in food. I don't typically open up to people. I deal with a lot of things internally, and just try to find the best way to kind of cope, I guess.
So when you moved out, did you have a vision of what you were going to do in the future, like starting up a business, or kind of where were you thinking career-wise of going?
So when I moved out, I had gotten really involved in like the surfing kind of skating community. I had worked at a surf shop back in Hawaii. And so I loved surfing. I loved the aspect of skating, like skateboarding and all that kind of stuff. I suck at skateboarding, but like there were a lot of kids and people that would hang out at the shop. And so I loved being part of that community. And I've always been the type of person that wants to kind of help people in their dreams and all that kind of stuff. So it was at that point that I kind of started picking up like a little bit of like photography and whatnot. So I would have a lot of the kids from the neighborhood come and hang out at the shop. And if I was going to go surfing, I would take them surfing. Or if they wanted to go skate, I would go bring them to these different places that we would go skate. I would take photos of them. I was fortunate enough to have a friend who worked at a photo lab, so she would develop all my film for free back in the day when we had developed film. Not like nowadays, where everything's digital and you can get that instant gratification of if you got the shot or not. So that's where I was kind of thinking I was going to be going into like sports photography, like videos and shots like that. And I had aspirations of seeing one of my photos in like one of the surfing magazines or one of the skating magazines and stuff like that. So that's kind of the route I wanted to go. But yeah, life had a different plan for me.
So because I mean, I've heard you mentioned before that you went into ministry. So when that sports photography dream didn't happen, where'd you go?
Yeah. So kind of around the same time, again, I started getting really, really involved in church. And that pastor that I was talking about, previously, he was trying to get me, mentor me to becoming a pastor. And just hearing stories of people, of how they came to get into that position of becoming a pastor and all that kind of stuff. I've heard of people, going through terrible lives. I've heard of somebody who like was shot and killed and brought back to life, and like you hear all these crazy stories, right? When it started coming to me and people saying like, you need to become a pastor, I was like, I don't have a story. Like, who's going to listen to me? Like, I'm this fat kid that's unathletic, that doesn't have a whole lot to offer. How can I impact anybody's lives? So that scared the crap out of me, because like I deep down inside, I knew that was something that I probably should have been doing and I should have been pursuing, but I justified it to not do it by saying I didn't have a story. And so with that fear, I ran. I ended up moving to Vegas. So pretty much as far away from going into the direction that I felt I should have been going, I ended up landing up in Sin City, that's up on top.
Yeah.
Do you know that 60% of consumers avoid brands with unattractive logos, even if they have good reviews? Well, Resurrection Design Co. helps kingdom minded businesses fix that problem with award winning brand and web design. And right now, they are offering a free, I repeat, free website design or redesign to the first 2 podcast listeners who sign up for a brand identity package. When signing up for a brand identity package, Resurrection will help you design your brand's visual and verbal identity so that you attract your ideal customers, differentiate yourself from your competitors, and strengthen your credibility in the market. Now, this offer is only valid for the first 2 people who sign up this month, so don't wait to visit resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner to claim it. The link is also in the description. RDC has a 100% client satisfaction and a 5 out of 5 Google rating. So don't wait to snag this deal. Head to resurrectiondesign.co/creator-corner or visit the link in the description.
So yeah, I think I'd moved to Vegas when I was about 21 or 22. And just kind of running from what my calling, so ended up in Vegas. So initially, before going to Vegas, I had moved away from Maui where I was living, and I moved to Oahu, which was essentially the big city in Hawaii. I just wanted to get away from all that pressure of people constantly telling me like, hey, like, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Like, why are you not pursuing what you're supposed to be doing? So I needed to get away. I didn't want to get away from the surfing. I didn't want to get away from, a lot of that comfort level that I had, but I needed to get away from what was making me uncomfortable. And that was like the people telling me that I needed to be doing something.
So did you ever maybe have some other job or, in a financial spot where you can literally just move to Vegas, like from Hawaii?
Did I have, I was working at a surf shop. The surf shop had multiple locations, so I was able to transfer to the other location. But growing up, being in Hawaii, it's really expensive. So the surf shop was like my main job, but I had multiple jobs. Even right as soon as I got out of high school, I was working like 2 or 3 jobs. So I was working at a gas station / car wash. I was delivering pizzas. My dad had established a window washing business, and when he left, I kind of took that over. So I was doing multiple things all while trying to, figure out what I want to do with my life, while trying to go to school and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when you moved to Vegas and kind of running from this one thing, did you ever find the solution to it in Vegas?
No, or was that just absolutely?
Was Vegas kind of the gas station, the pit stop on the way? Like, what were you looking for?
I was looking to get away. I wanted nothing to do with it. Because again, I didn't have a story. I didn't have anything that I felt anybody could relate to. So I went to Vegas with no job. Didn't even really have a place to stay. So got there, had a place to stay for a little bit. And then funny enough, one of my friends that I had worked with in Maui, she decided to move up to Vegas. So we ended up getting a place together. And yeah, just started living my life. I got a job at the airline. So I was working at the airline, which was nice because young, single, able to fly for free. So when I did start to get homesick, I was able to go back to Hawaii when I can get the time off and stuff like that. So it was nice. It was a good little transition for me. But yeah, moving up to Vegas was a big step for me.
Mm-hmm. So how old were you when you left Vegas, and where'd you go after there?
So let's get into the story of how I got out of Vegas. So 2000 when did I leave Vegas? It's been a long time. So I don't know what the year is, but in Vegas, ended up getting engaged to a girl out there. And we were obviously supposed to get married. A few weeks before us actually having the wedding, found out that her nephew at the time had come down with or had been diagnosed with, I believe it was some like leukemia, maybe something like that. And then, so when we found out, I had just mentioned to her like, hey, let's postpone the wedding. Like, I want you and your family to be able to kind of go through this. You know, like, I don't want to have a big celebration and all that kind of stuff with you guys kind of going through this. So, probably 4 or 5 days prior to our wedding, he ended up passing away. And so we needed to kind of make some decisions on whether or not we were going to pursue the wedding at that time. And with that being said, I had a lot of people coming from Hawaii to come and be in Vegas to come and celebrate with us. And then I was like, hey, like, if this isn't going to happen, then let's postpone it. So, you know, people don't have to make the trip and all that kind of stuff. And we can deal with this properly. And, she said, no, let's do it. So we had everybody fly out. And so we picked up my brothers and a couple other friends that were coming in that were going to be part of my wedding party. And we had to get them with their final fittings for the tuxedos. So we picked them up from the airport and went straight to the tux shop. And at the tux shop, she decided to tell me that she didn't want to go. She didn't want to have the wedding. She wanted to postpone it, but didn't want to have the wedding. I didn't handle that very well. So I ended up kind of breaking mentally. And then, so that kind of led to a whole story of our relationship ended up not happening. I don't think she ever technically still hasn't ever really called off the wedding. She still has the ring. But yeah, I didn't handle it mentally. I didn't have a whole lot of people to really help me kind of navigate that. So I turned to other substances, to kind of numb it. And a lot of, self-harm kind of thoughts, I guess you could say. So yeah, ended up going to counseling, talking to somebody, and she told me, hey, I want you to go see some of my friends at this place. And I had no idea what was going on. I thought I was just going to see some counselors who were a little bit better off in the situation that I was to be able to help me. And ended up going to a behavioral health center. And I guess some of the things that I had said had put them in the position that they can hold me there on a 3-day suicide watch. So I ended up in a mental hospital for 3 days. It was an interesting experience there.
Did that ever do anything?
It definitely made me think about what I say to healthcare professionals. For sure.
I mean, you hear all these stories of people that, you know, some psych person pronounces them mentally insane. So they go into a hospital and they just wind up more mentally insane.
Yeah. It was an interesting situation. You know, growing up, I never had a whole lot of confidence. So I've always been very self-critical. I used to say this all the time, that there isn't a person in the world who hates himself, who hates me more than me. So, it was something that I talked about all the time. I always talked about like hurting myself or killing myself and all that kind of stuff. Like, I would say it and I would always joke around about it, but it was something that was always in the back of my mind because like I didn't have deep connections with anybody. I didn't have a whole lot. I wasn't going towards anything. My life was like, I was just cruising along, you know, and then the constant pressure of like, hey, why are you not pursuing what you're supposed to be doing? Why are you not pursuing that? So there's that pressure, just having a really hard time. So while I'm in there, I'm really realizing that there are a lot of people in there that really have a lot more issues than I have. A lot more issues, you know. yeah, they tried to give me a lot of like meds and all that kind of stuff. The only thing I wanted to take was the sleeping pills because I just couldn't sleep. I wasn't sleeping for days at a time. But I didn't want to take any of the medications for the like the psych meds and all that kind of stuff. So definitely made me realize that I'm not as mentally incapable as I was making myself out to be. So yeah, it was an interesting place to be.
Mm. So where do you go from there?
So didn't have a whole lot of people there that would help me when I got out. So my mom ended up flying from Hawaii, got off the plane, came straight to the hospital, took me out, went back to my house, packed up some stuff, and flew back to Hawaii. And I was just supposed to be there for a little bit to kind of recover a little bit. I got back to Hawaii. My job would not let me back. I worked on the ramp at the airlines. I was the guy that was throwing bags lightly putting bags in the belly of the plane and pushing the planes out and bringing them in and all that kind of stuff. And I had made the threat again at the time, just really didn't want to be around. Didn't feel like it was worth anything. Didn't feel like I can do anything for anybody or myself. So I had made the threat that the first plane that comes in, I'm jumping into the engine. So my job didn't let me back. So while I'm in Hawaii, they call me out, tell me that I'm no longer to come back. I'm no longer able to come back. I had just bought a house in Vegas because, again, I was supposed to get married, planning on having a family. So that was a tough one. Ended up having to sell my house. I can still remember I made $10 on that house after I sold it, which was fine. I didn't lose any money. But then I didn't really have much to go to back in Hawaii or back in Vegas. So I ended up staying in Hawaii. Super depressed, still didn't want to be around, living with my mom, and still feeling that pressure because now I'm back in Maui around all the people who were saying that I needed to become a pastor. And for the years that I was living in Vegas, saying that like I was running away from my calling, like Jonah, Mm-hmm. And so, feeling like a failure, like I couldn't make it as an adult on my own in Vegas. Definitely couldn't make it as somebody who was worthy of being a husband. Didn't feel worthy to become a pastor. Just there was a whole lot of like I was failing and everything. So I'm stuck back in Maui, and I say stuck because that's how I felt at the time. But I was back in Maui, living back with my mom. She had remarried at the time, so I'm living with my stepdad and my mom, and just super depressed. Didn't want to get out of bed. The few times I would get out of bed, I would just go to the couch and just watch TV and just be just super depressed, just crying all the time, just super negative. Just probably terrible to be around. And my mom's company was having a company picnic, and she's like, "You're getting out of the house. You're coming with me to the company picnic. You're going to get outdoors. You're going to be around people." Because like I would like literally just wanted to stay at home. So I was like, fine, like I'll go just to kind of appease my mom, Go to the company picnic. She's like, "All right, you're not going to just sit here. You're going to go." So they started up a softball game. So they started playing softball. She's like, "You're going to go play softball." I'm like, okay. So I go, it's my turn to bat. I ended up hitting the ball, and I'm running around the bases. I round first base. I plant my left foot. I feel a pop. I plant my right foot. I feel a pop. I tore my Achilles in my left ankle, and I tore my calf muscle on my right leg. So got to call the ambulance. I can't walk. I end up in the hospital. So now I hate life, and now I can't walk. And I'm just like, okay, God, I don't know how much further I need to go down, but you're obviously doing something. And I'm not saying he did all this stuff to me, but like that's where I was at that time in my mindset. I was like, I need something. I need something to change. I need to find a way to not keep going down. Cause like I couldn't find an ounce of worth in myself. So I can't walk. And I like to look at it this way, like these things happen to my legs so that I can no longer run away from what I was supposed to be doing. You know, I literally, like, my mom would still have to go to work during the day. So I'm at home by myself on crutches. I can't even get it to the fridge to find some food. Right. So like, I got to like swing both legs and my crutches and then swing. So it was definitely an eye-opening time for me, in that portion of my life. So sitting at home, just super depressed. I'm like, okay, God, like you're allowing this to happen. You're definitely making me try to realize something. Right. So I kind of start opening up to the idea of what I was supposedly called to do. Started kind of trying to get back into church. You know, obviously still kind of like healing. So I started being able to walk a little bit better and all that kind of stuff. Ended up kind of going back into church, trying to ease my way back into it, because it was hard for me to go because I felt like I had let a lot of people down by running. So it was hard for me to step back into that place. But, you know, thankfully, like, they were pretty welcoming. Like, you know, like, it's not that they held anything against me. They would still challenge me, but I didn't know how to handle it challenging at the time because, again, I still felt like I didn't have a story. You know, I had a little bit more of a story now, but not really a story. So yeah, started getting back into church, started playing on the worship team. I didn't know how to play music really well. You know, growing up, I had to learn how to play the ukulele, taught myself to play guitar. But at the time, my younger brother had switched churches and he was the bass player. So like, I just grabbed a bass and I kind of taught myself how to play bass guitar. So I started getting involved in the worship team. And as I was doing that, the church that I was going to, it started like a jiu-jitsu ministry. It's called Fight for Life. And I still believe it's going on now. I don't really talk to a whole lot of people from back in Maui anymore. But yeah, so they started doing that. And I still wasn't able to start training jiu-jitsu because I wasn't able to walk very well. So I would go and I would kind of watch a couple classes, you know, here and there. But yeah, it was something that, through all that, that's how I kind of got introduced to jiu-jitsu. It was through that whole story of failed engagement, running from my calling, ending up in Vegas and back in Maui, where everything kind of started all over again for me.
Mm-hmm. So your life kind of starts over for you.
Yeah.
Where'd you go from there, and how did you meet your wife?
So in the church that we were going to, she had worked with one of the girls that went to our church. And so it's a crazy story. So my wife is from Minnesota, right? Not anything like Hawaii. She ended up there kind of on a bucket list kind of thing. One of her friends one day said like, "Hey, I'm moving to Maui. Do you want to go?" And it's always been on one of her bucket list items was to live in a warm tropical place by the ocean. And she didn't really have anything going on. She had kind of just gotten over a kind of bad relationship. I think she was kind of trying to search for something. And so she ended up booking some crazy flight. I think her story is that she spent over 20 something hours on planes trying to get back to get over to Hawaii. So she ended up in Hawaii, ended up kind of getting herself established, got a job, found a place and all that kind of stuff. Crazy thing is, though, is when I was living with my mom, we were living in kind of like a condo complex. And it just so happened that my wife, Deborah, was living in the same exact condo complex. Like, we had no idea about each other. But again, like I said, as I was kind of going through my recovery with my legs, I started getting involved more with my faith again. So I would wake up every morning, I would read the Bible, and I would pray. And as I was doing that, I was like, my room was right on the parking lot side of the complex. And for a very long time, I had written off ever getting into a relationship ever again, because I just didn't want to get hurt. Like, I had never felt emotional pain like that, and I didn't want to go through it again. So as time went on, I started opening up to the idea of getting back into a relationship. So moving on past that, I kind of started praying, like, God, if this is what you want for me, like, I need you to make it like 100% clear that this is what you want. And like, I need you to show me who it's going to be. So in my times of prayer, there was one time where, I had a vision. Where we played our music for the church. We were kind of at the bottom. There was like some stairs and everybody, like, it was like stadium seating, and we were at the bottom. And so in my vision, I had looked up, and at the top of the stairs, all I saw was a silhouette. I saw a silhouette of obviously a girl. And as soon as I saw that silhouette, I felt like God spoke to me and said, like, that's going to be your wife. That's your wife right there. No idea who it was. Like, there wasn't anybody that was on my radar. So Deborah had been invited to our church by her friend that attended the church as well. And so she went there for a couple of weeks, I want to say. And then she felt like she wanted to kind of get involved. And so she asked the pastor, like, how can I help? Or she asked the pastor's wife, I think it was, how can she help? And so the pastor's wife was like, okay, well, here's what you can do. You can hand out the bulletins, you know? And so she's standing at the top of the thing, and I completely forgot about the vision that I had. So I'm down at the bottom, kind of getting tuned up, kind of getting ready to kind of get into that mindset of like just kind of getting into worship. And I think at this point, I maybe had said one or two words to Deborah prior to that. Again, there was nobody on my radar, and I wasn't really pursuing anything. But as I was tuning up, I looked up, and that exact vision that I had saw in my prayer time, it happened right then. Like, I looked up and I saw Deborah, and as soon as I saw that, like, I was like, that's your wife. So like, I knew from that moment that she was going to be my wife. And so I bring the story of me praying in the front window. As I'm praying for God to bring somebody for me, she used to run every morning right past my window. And I had no idea. Like, we didn't know that until after the fact that we had been dating for a while, that she was running by my window every morning as I was praying and kind of asking God for a wife. So yeah, that's kind of how we met. She ended up in Maui on a bucket list. I ended up in Maui because I had taken too many drugs and ended up in a mental hospital. My mom came and picked me up.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said you didn't have a story to tell.
I'm getting a story. I'm getting a story. Yeah.
So you moved here, and you started an old academy, and then you started this academy. How did that all come about as you're raising your family and everything?
So so started training jiu-jitsu a little bit in that church back in Hawaii. And I got promoted to blue belt. And then shortly after getting promoted to blue belt, I started getting this feeling that, like, I didn't want to stay in Maui. I kind of went back there not on my own terms. I kind of felt like I was somewhat forced back there. So like, I wanted to come back to the mainland, to the United States, to to kind of prove to myself that I can do it. I knew that, Deborah and I were going to get married. I knew that we were going to have a family. It's just, even at that time when things were still a little bit cheaper, it's just super, super hard to raise a family in the way that I wanted to. I was fortunate enough again in my very early childhood to be able to live in California. So I know what it's like to be able to jump into a car and drive to a different state or go and see all these different things. In Hawaii, if you want to go anywhere, you have to jump on a plane for the most part, and I didn't want that for my kids. I wanted them to be able to go and explore, take little road trips to be able to travel. So I didn't want to raise my family in Hawaii. So I needed to get back to the mainland. I didn't want to go back to Vegas. Just too many bad memories. I needed to start anew. I had a friend that I graduated high school with that lives out here. And I had a cousin that was living out here as well. So I was like, let's go to Arizona to kind of just get established back in the mainland. Our goal was eventually to get to San Diego. But that's not what life had for us. We ended up staying here. I wasn't training jiu-jitsu immediately when we got up here. Tried to get our jobs, trying to get established and stuff like that. I was able to kind of train sporadically. I bought some mats, so my brother and I would kind of train. We ended up getting hooked up with a black belt that my brother had worked with, so he was coming over for a little bit and kind of teaching us a little bit of jiu-jitsu. So I wasn't training actively for a few years there, but jiu-jitsu has always been on my mind. It's always something that I wanted to do again. I never stopped buying gis. I don't know why I have this affinity for jiu-jitsu gis, but even when I wasn't training actively, I was still buying gis. And then so kind of fast forward a few years, got involved in an academy out here, found a community that I really enjoyed being around, and just kind of trained there for a number of years, kind of started coming up through the ranks and was able to really become part of a really solid group of people within that community of jiu-jitsu. And then, I found I had realized that this could be a way for me to be able to kind of help people out in an unconventional way of kind of being there for people. So kind of being a pastor, but not having to go through all that stuff, like going to schooling and stuff. I mean, I tried a couple times to go through certain programs to kind of get credentialed to become a pastor. Schooling has never been my favorite thing. So it was really hard for me. So yeah, once I started kind of realizing that there was a way for me to help people and kind of work into what I feel like I was called to do through jiu-jitsu, that's kind of where I wanted to go. So a buddy of mine at the time and I, we were going to invest in an academy. That just didn't work out. We're going to buy in with somebody else. That didn't work out. And then COVID hit. So prior to COVID hitting, we had talked about kind of opening up our own thing. Then COVID hit. My wife had lost her job. And we made the decision to hey, let's just do it now. Let's just open up now. Which makes absolutely no sense. I mean, during COVID, we were supposed to have 6 feet of distance, and we're opening up a jiu-jitsu academy where there's definitely not 6 feet with what we do,
Yeah.
you know? And so we opened that up, and like my wife likes to say, it was like a perfect storm. Everything kind of came together. We found our spot. People were scared. People were afraid of what was going to happen. It was just such a weird time in our lives, as a community in whole. You know, there were a lot of people who were scared. They wanted to know how to defend themselves. And so jiu-jitsu was something that people had looked at. The government was giving people money to, you know, they were giving them all these checks and all that kind of stuff. So people had money to spend. So our academy grew fairly quickly. We got over 300 students in a year and a half or something like that, which is unheard of. So yeah, so that was really the start of me opening up an academy, really kind of getting into using my skills that I've attained in jiu-jitsu to kind of help people, you know. And as things go, not all relationships last. There's a separation with that academy, and you know, Deborah and I had made the decision to move on. At that point, it wasn't a great breakup, you know. And again, anytime I feel like something that doesn't go right, I immediately revert back to I'm a failure, you know. But my heart has always been to help people. So I was going through a really, really down time in my life once again. All those old feelings of failing and not wanting to be around, they just came flooding back. But I have a family now. I have a wife. I have 4 kids. So I can't take the option that I've always talked about doing, because I can't leave them. I can't leave them alone. So I try to figure out how to do things to cope, you know. Probably not the best way, but that's the only way I know how. I clam up. I just try to keep to myself, try not to make anybody else's life miserable. Because I know when I'm feeling miserable, it's really easy for me to make everybody else feel miserable around me. But as I'm kind of going through my thing, my own turmoil, I see that a lot of people who I've grown close to are being affected by the breakup with my old academy. And so I make the decision to kind of get out of my own sorrow and try to help people out. And so what we did was, I opened up my living room. I had some mats that I had bought for myself personally to just kind of train in my own garage. So I put some mats down in my living room, and I invited a few friends over, some of the guys that were kind of struggling with what was going on. And so it wasn't like I wanted anybody to come over and teach and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to hang out with people. I wanted people to just kind of feel where they can come in, use jiu-jitsu as like an escape, and kind of forget about everything else that's happening outside of those doors. And for the hour and a half or whatever it was, however long we were training, that's all that mattered, was like us 4 in that living room, just enjoying one another's company, and training jiu-jitsu. And from that 4, we started meeting a little bit more regularly in my living room. We ended up growing it up to about, the most we ever had in my living room was 20 people on the mats. I think it was 21 people on the mats, but it wasn't just the people who were training. They were bringing their kids and they were bringing their friends and all that kind of stuff. So we ended up kind of growing. So we had, I think that particular night, I think we had like 40 people. And again, what I wanted was for people to kind of feel it was a place for them to be welcomed. So what I eventually started doing was, we would train jiu-jitsu, and I made a bunch of food and we would eat. So it was just like a family kind of gathering, kind of thing. And that kind of gathering grew into where we're sitting right now, Cove Jiu-Jitsu. And so that's what this academy is. It just started from that. And that's kind of where the story leads us to right now. So that's how we're here.
So what is the mission of Cove?
So Cove, again, if you can see on our logo there, I don't know if you can see that in the thing, right? So in the middle of that, that's the I. There's an I, a V, and an I. So those are the Roman numerals 4 and 6. And I base that off of Isaiah 4:6. It'll be a shelter and a shade from the heat of the day, and a refuge and a hiding place from the storm and rain. So I know how rough life can be. You know, I have a story that tells that. One of the things that helped me get through that was jiu-jitsu. So what we do here is we try to provide a place for people to be able to come in here and forget about all the worries that they have out there. So when we come in here, we keep it light. We try to welcome everybody. We make it we try to make people feel like they're welcome here. You know, it's intimidating to start jiu-jitsu. It's not something that we do. A lot of people aren't comfortable with aggressive cuddling, which is what we do, right? So we try to make it a place where people feel welcome and they can come in here, and whatever worries they have out there, they're free from that in here for the hour or two that they're in here. I've been in academies where it's like, you're going to get really good jiu-jitsu, but it's hard to bring your family. It's hard to bring your kids. If you have little kids, like if they're constantly being shushed, as a parent, it's really difficult. So, I mean, there's a lot of times where we have kids running back and forth through here. We have a little playroom for them. We don't want people to come in here and feel like their family's going to be a burden. Like, we welcome them. So yeah, that's what we want to do here, is just kind of give people a little place of refuge, kind of get away from whatever's happening out there. Come in here, and the only thing that you have to worry about is whether or not you're going to get choked or one of your limbs broken. And that's way better than any bills, any sort of relational problems that you're going to have, because we've built a culture of being able to trust one another, you know?
I can tell you 100% you have succeeded in that mission.
Thank you.
It appears that this has been everything you've been looking for.
It's as far as that aspect, for sure. We're still, we had just in February, we had just made our 1 year of being open here. Again, we were doing a few things in my house, but as far as an official academy, we've just made 1 year. We have a lot of big dreams and a lot of things that we want to do. And so we have a good foundation of what we want to do, but I have worldwide visions. I have because there are people hurting everywhere. There are people struggling everywhere. And I don't see why we can't use jiu-jitsu to help people kind of get through that. Yeah.
Yeah. So where can people find out more about you and Cove?
CoveJiu-Jitsu.com. So I'm not a web designer. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not any of that stuff. So I made the website. It's terrible. So if anybody knows how to build websites that's willing to work with us, but yeah, you can call us up. All the information's on our website. We have an Instagram. I'm no longer really on social media too much, so I don't pay attention to that stuff. My wife is running all that. But yeah, just come in, check us out. We have once a month we do a thing called Ohana Night. So in Hawaii, Ohana means family, as you probably know from Lilo and Stitch. But yeah, we do Ohana Night. So we bring in food and we just open up the mats, we roll. Kids are running around. I've heard it said it's like a family reunion. People come in and you got just kids running around. There's food. There's things happening, people laugh and playing good music and stuff. So yeah, that's how you can kind of get in touch with us, email us, call us, whatever. If you're going to be calling, you'll probably be talking to my wife because I hate talking. So that's why, again, this is super uncomfortable for me.
Well, I can tell you right now, I thoroughly appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
all of this.
I appreciate the opportunity to get the story out because
Truly amazing.
I got a little bit of a story. It's not done yet,
Yeah.
But
yeah, crazy where it can take you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Yes, sir.
coming on today and telling your story.
Yes.
Truly remarkable.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.